Philadelphia 5.5-point favorites. Is that a bet that you would go ahead and lock in?
I don't know. I think this is going to see. I think this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
I think that if the Eagles, if they could get, if they could go up, if they go, let's say 13-0, like they did against Green Bay, I really wonder if Tennessee will stick with the run game, because as long as they stick with their run game, I think they're in this game.
Right.
But I just don't think their offense can score enough points. So yeah, 5.5. 5.5 isn't bad. It's not bad at all. Yeah, I don't know. I have to see what the spreads are with some of these games. I think that Washington Giant game is fantastic. Like, that's such an interesting game. I wouldn't bet it because you don't know how those division games go.
Right.
But I haven't decided. I haven't seen what I'm going to do yet. I don't know. I haven't looked at the points.
I was reading up that Philadelphia, as Eagle fans, we should root for the Giants because the Commanders have that head-to-head win against us, even though it's 1-1. Even though technically the Giants have a better record because they have one less loss because they've had a bye and Washington hasn't. But that's a tough one to kind of decide who you would rather face in the postseason. Like, at this point, after watching what the Commanders were able to do to us, I would rather face the Giants. But I also trust the Giants coaching staff more. Like Dable scares me, and their D coordinator scares me a lot more than what the Commanders have. But the Commanders' defensive line played so well against us this last time. It's hard to kind of decide on who you want to root for in that game, and you got to pick somebody because someone's got to win.
Yeah. Well, we split with Washington, so we split with them. We have to play the Giants twice,
right?
So they technically could beat us twice, which it's not going to happen, but. I don't know. I really think when I look at the Washington game, I really feel like, man, the Eagles had to lose somewhere on this schedule. You had to lose somewhere on the schedule, and it makes a lot of sense that it would be a division rival, somebody who sees you twice a year. So it's not that surprising. I don't think Washington could do that to us again. However, I would rather play the Giants probably too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think Tennessee in general is a very interesting matchup this weekend because the one main concern that we have, I think both of us would agree, is still the run defense. And I mean, maybe the defense in general. There were a couple of drives from Aaron Rodgers and the Packers this past week where it was like, okay, we're getting shredded a little bit more than we've seen in the past through the passing game. And that was kind of like the running game was an issue. They get Joseph and they get Sue. It was pretty much fixed against the Colts minus that first drive. Jonathan Taylor didn't go, buckshot on us. And then there was some moments with Aaron Jones, but not a lot. But it was Rodgers kind of carving us up in the middle of the football field. And so I really see this as the running game test again, because if Henry goes for 150, then we're going to sit back and complain for a week saying, well, the Eagles' run defense isn't fixed. But if Henry goes for 90 on 25 carries, then I think maybe we sit back and go, okay, the run defense is fixed, and our one big flaw defensively is going to be just fine.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick Henry scares me, but I really am curious if your offense can move the ball and put points up, will they stick with the run game? Because I think if you can get Tennessee in a situation where they have to throw, it's over,
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a very interesting matchup because Tennessee runs the ball, and if I was Tennessee, I would have Derrick Henry get the ball 30 times. If I'm down 14-0, I'm not panicking. I'm going to keep running Derrick Henry.
Right.
I think that's what I would do. So I think it's a tough game. This is one of the games, probably one of the few games where I'm really like, I always think the Eagles will go win and have a chance, but this was the one game where I think it could be really close.
Looks like he had 17 carries for 38 yards this past week. Another thing I looked at earlier today, they haven't given up more than 24 points since week 2. Like defensively, no one talks about the Titans defense. At least I haven't heard anything about the Titans defense. And yet, I mean, 22, 17, 17, 10, 10, 20. And that was even the Chiefs. It was only 20. And then in a loss this past week, 20 to the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a really good test. And that's the thing is we talked about, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be a really, really good test for the Eagles. And then, a couple of weeks ago, it was supposed to be Dallas would be a really good test for the Eagles. They passed every single test minus Washington. And so at what point are the national media going to watch us pass this test and go, oh, okay, well, they passed this test. It's going to be just fine.
They won't. It won't happen. It doesn't even matter. Dallas wins one game versus Minnesota, and they're the best team in the conference now. We're not going to get any respect, and that's kind of how I like it. I kind of like it like that. No respect. and then just keep winning. The good thing is this game's in Philly. That to me is the big deal. It's a big factor.
We got a comment from Clifford saying, once we clinch the number one spot, do we rest starters? I think it's a two-part question. The first question is going to be, when would you clinch the number one spot, right? Because they have a scenario I talked about on my show today where if they win and like 4 other things happen, then they clinch a playoff spot, but it's not the number one seed. I mean, maybe by the Bears game, could you have the ones? You probably got to beat the Cowboys to get the one seed, right?
Well, yeah. I was actually looking at this today and talked about this in one of my videos. If Dallas wins the next 3 games, right? Their next 3 games are the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars.
Right.
That's easy. They're going to win the next 3 games. If the Eagles win the next 3 games, let's say both teams are 3-0, that means that Christmas Eve game is going to clinch the division.
Okay.
That would actually clinch the division. Now, clinching the division is not a number 1 seed because Minnesota has only got 1 game. Right, they've only got 1 more loss than us. So essentially, they're 1.5 games. So we would have to keep winning right now up until the last week of probably the second to last week of the season because we have that tiebreaker. So we need Minnesota to lose a few games. That would help us a lot if the Jets won this week. That may be an interesting game.
That's right. That's a 1:00 game. It looks like, and Minnesota's only a 3-point favorite. So, and that's like the whole Mike White. Is Mike White good or is Mike White bad? Let's say Dallas slips up and Philadelphia were to clinch not only the division but the 1 seed versus the Cowboy game. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm sitting starters against the Saints because of the draft pick, and it might sound dumb for this year. I mean, that's like a guaranteed loss for the Saints that you can give them that benefits your football team and also gets the draft pick even higher. I think this Giant game is the one. Probably for sure where they're going to see rest, and it's in Philadelphia, so you don't want to tell people not to buy tickets,
but you wonder Howie if Howie's like, look, I could get the first pick here, second pick overall. You play those guys, the call's coming in, it's coming in. But
I would do it. I would do it. It's such a weird time to be 10-1 because it's like 10-1, you're super good, and yet at the same time 10-1. Like literally, you lose this week, you lose next week. You're no longer the 1 seed, and Dallas is a game back. I mean, they're really basically half a game back because they could be, 3 losses, and our 3 losses. Be very interesting to see how it's going to go.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of room for mistakes. I mean, Minnesota, they're a lot better than I thought they were. Going to be. I thought they'd have at least 2 or 3 more losses. So that would be nice if we could get some breathing room from them. But right now, this looks like. You're talking about the second to last. That New Orleans game may be the game that clinches home field throughout the playoffs for us.
I've seen a couple of comments on previous shows of mine this past week saying that the onesies not a big deal. It's not that important. Like, who really cares? I completely disagree. Man. I feel like that is the key to Philadelphia going to the Super Bowl this year. If you have to go on the road. I mean, like, if you had to go to Minnesota, if you have to go to, heaven forbid, San Francisco right now, like, make the 49ers come across the United States, play you in cold weather, and force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat you. I would do anything possible to get the 1 seed. Anything.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that the Eagles go to the Super Bowl without the 1 seed. I think you need that bye week. I think you need home field. Home field when it's cold in Philly in January it's such a big advantage. And when you talk about the 49ers, if there's one team in the NFC that worries me a little bit, it would be them.
Yeah.
Because they playoff tested, So I think you have to – I think home field is essential.
You mentioned the Vikings being better than you thought. How do you view the Vikings? Because I would definitely put Philadelphia's the best team in the NFC, right? And we're both biased, but come on, what do you? I mean, I think unbiasedly they are. I would say the Dallas Cowboys are 2 right now, and I do have a fear of Dallas. I think Dallas is very good. I don't think that they're better than the Eagles head to head, but healthy OBJ gets added, which we'll talk about. That could go ahead and do something. I put the Niners at 3, and then I put the Vikings at 4, mainly because I don't think the Vikings defense is that good. I think the Minnesota Vikings defense has shown at times that they are going to give up a lot of points. They should have lost to the Patriots on Thanksgiving night. Like, that was a touchdown when whoever the tight end was brought it across the pylon, and then it moved a little bit. They gave up 33 to the Buffalo Bills, or 32 to the Buffalo Bills, 26 to the Cardinals. They've given up points there. I think it's Dallas and then the 49ers that I'm really afraid of. If Minnesota comes to the link in the divisional round, it's just going to be the craziest crowd ever, because I feel like we have that little, rivalry based on 2017 where they hate us, we hate them, and our fans would go absolutely, buck wild in that game.
Yeah, well, I don't have any fear of Kirk Cousins in a big playoff game. I
Right.
just don't. He stinks. But I kind of probably would agree. I might put the 49ers 2 over Dallas
Okay.
just because it really pisses Cowboy fans off. But I also think that Dallas has an issue, that Cowboy fans don't like to talk about. That this is a team that you have Dak Prescott going in his 7th year. He's in his 7th year. He's got 1 playoff win. They don't win big games. They usually collapse this time of year. So I expect that to happen again. But I would say this in a let's say in an NFC championship game, I think if you play a division opponent who comes every year to your stadium, I do think those games can go either way.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
Yeah. I know. I totally agree. I think that Dallas is fascinating this year. And I think that can lead us into another conversation in a second about OBJ and the impact that he would make there. I just think the 49ers defense is really good. And that would be a great game to watch to see what the Eagle offensive line can do against San Francisco. But, I mean, for as much as people rip on Kirk Cousins and rip on Dak Prescott for not winning games in the playoffs, that's all Jimmy G's done. I mean, I was reading an article yesterday talking about how, the Niners have to move off of Jimmy G after this year because they paid Trey, or they drafted Trey Lance, give up all the draft capital. How many teams would be better with Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, the Jets right now is the name that's thrown out there. They'd be, I mean, Mike White looked good this past week. Imagine what Mike White did this past week with the Jets the entire season. They have serious weapons on the outside. When they're healthy at running back, they're really, really good. And their defense is the reason they've won 7 games this year. I think that's a big fear, is that Garoppolo gets in the playoffs and goes, hey, I have nothing to lose because I'm getting traded or cut anyway. Let me just ball out that way I get a massive contract from the Jets or whoever. And then he comes in and carves Philadelphia's defense up. It could happen.
Well, he's got the weapons. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is a hell of a player. You got Kittle. You got Deebo Samuel. Now you have Christian McCaffrey. They're a dangerous team. And then, of course, I like their pass rush. So I think they're definitely a dangerous team. They went into Green Bay and beat them in cold weather last year. They go into Dallas and beat Dallas in Dallas. They're battle tested. That's why I think that they would be the biggest threat out of anybody in the NFC.